Goeiedag. Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Yes, it's the old fart back again. Get over it. And for all those ANC, EFF and BLF members who are hating on me, yeah, your Sangoma didn't work. I'm still here. You better, you know what you need to do? You need to get a better one. And I think a lot of my subscribers here would suggest that maybe a change in religion would help a lot in many ways in South Africa. Anyway, that's my lecture. So let's get back onto the subject. And the subject is Cyril Ramaphosa, who is clearly corrupt. We'll be covering that in a second. But he is now trying to dodge around giving a report about what's going on with Eskom. You know, this guy is as bad as a Zuma. And we know how bad Zuma is. Okay. The Democratic Alliance has given President Cyril Ramaphosa until Friday to release the outcome of the Special Investigation Unit SIU report on Eskom's multi-billion rand coal deal during the first round of rolling blackouts in 2008. Now, there's a huge amount of scandal involved here, which involves the state capture thing and the Guptas and stuff like that. It's all too complicated for this channel, okay? There are other channels which probably go into a lot more detail, but we're talking about the credibility of this corrupt individual who is currently running South Africa. And that's a big, big issue. Getting back to the article. DA members of Parliament, Natasha Mazona, told the Citizen the report indicated the government had bailed out Eskom with 14.5 billion rand. The report was handed over to the President in July 2017 and allegedly kept hush-hush from the public ears and eyes. But now the DA want the cat to be let out of the bag, said Mazzoni. She said the report also established that the first rolling blackout episode back in 2008 may have been carefully orchestrated by Eskom employees to get emergency contracts signed that would benefit pop-up coal supplies. Replace pop-up with Gupta, okay? That little family name. The SIU investigation lasted 4 years, she said. Why the hell did it take that long? Where was the paper trail? I mean, this is crazy shit. You know, this would not be accepted in any white-run government anywhere in the world. But of course, unfortunately in South Africa, it's not run by the white population, is it? She goes on to say, if President Ramaphosa fails to accede to our request, we will submit an application in terms of the Promotion of Access of Information Act, PAIA. We demand the SIU report be released immediately so the people of South Africa can see we no longer have a government but an organization of criminals and crooks who have taken the power away from the people. Well, hello. We know that the ANC is as crooked as they come. And attached to this video is going to be the proof, and it involves two presidents, Zuma and Ramaphosa. They are both implicit in huge amounts of corruption in South Africa. And that's the reason why nobody, regardless of their level, down below these two idiots who run the country, is being charged. Because if you charge them, then the bone can be pointed at you, can't it? Welcome to the modern South Africa. It's very, very sad, guys, but everything is self-evident about what's going on. And that's why it pisses me off when you got people like British Airways promoting South Africa as a tourist destination when they know how dangerous it is. This is absolutely ludicrous. Anyway, that's my private bugbear. Getting back to her comments, she says, "We demand the SIU report be released immediately so the people of South Africa see we no longer have a government, but an organisation of criminals and crooks who have taken the power away from the people." And I excuse the licking noise in the background. That's my dog Bonsai. He's having a moment, okay? He's getting old, but I love him to bits. Attempts to solicit comment from government spokesman Fumio Williams were fruitless. I wonder why. In a statement yesterday afternoon, however, Mazoni said the presidency had told them that the records and report they had requested did not in fact exist. What? So they claim they got a report, now the report does not exist. Now this is very interesting, because remember that with Ramaphosa, his son, Zuma, whatever the hell it is, very forgettable. He was a beneficiary of the Bosasa scandal, that company that was just issuing out millions of rands to government employees in exchange for contracts. Yep, yeah, you're talking about the right mob. Yep. Agrisi, remember Agrisi, the guy who spilt the beans? He talked about Ramaphosa's own son getting 500,000 rand. 500,000 rand as a payout. And Ramaphosa, as you'll see in the video that's attached, it's coming up now, said that if that was true and he didn't have a contract and he didn't do the right thing, he would be the first person to take his son to the prison, to the jail, to the police, to be arrested. How that story has changed. The problem is Ramaphosa said that in Parliament. So he now has to abide by his own words. And this is which is going to become a huge sticking point, because you cannot lie to the Parliament. You cannot lie to the Parliament, okay? Okay, so getting back to what this lady is saying. The committee was established in response to recent electricity supply disruptions and the negative impact on the economy. However, what is astounding is the response from the presidency. The cabinet statements can be found here, which confirms the existence of such a report. So in other words, he's talking BS. This is Mr. Credible, Cyril Ramaphosa, talking BS. And I will put a link to where he confirms the existence of such a report. Now, what about Duduzima's contract with Bosasa, where you said it existed? I have seen it. He said, I have seen the contract. Does that exist, Cyril? I think you are so full of shit that the rivers and the lakes of South Africa that are totally contaminated with sewage couldn't compete with you. You are a complete crook, and I'm calling you out, buddy boy. Anyway, getting back to this lady. Sorry, I'll get off topic a bit, okay? Just get over it. What we're left with is either, one, Cabinet is lying to us and no report was actually prepared or delivered by the Deputy President, or two, the ANC does not want to release such a report and is covering up the true extent of the absolute chaos and crisis within Eskom. Now, there's one word that's been left out of there, and in fact, there are two words, and they're the most important words. One is corruption within Eskom, and the second is incompetency. incompetency through BEE. No wonder South Africa is falling in a huge heap. She continues to say, Eskom has been hampered by corruption, costs and capacity issues. State capture ripped the heart out of Eskom with corrupt contracts and tenders around diesel and coal. Eskom costs have soared, linked to the failing coal plants of Medupi and Kusile, with massive cost overruns, excessive executive pay and bloated workforce. The entity has failed to introduce a new capacity and maintain existing capacity, which has left South Africa at the mercy of rolling blackouts. And guess what, guys? Those two power stations, Medupi and Kusile, were built post-1994. And guess who one of the major beneficiaries of that contract was? The ANC government, because Lutili House had a huge percentage of the shares in the companies that were involved in developing these two power stations. This is corruption at the core. Okay. I will just read to you the final two paras, and this is again this lady talking. With Moody's reserving their ratings judgment, the sword is hanging over the heads of our economy, and it has Eskom written all over it. No, I don't agree with that. It has the friggin' ANC written all over it. This corrupt government and, BEE, incompetence, that's what's written all over this. Get your facts straight. We need the ANC to be honest and upfront with us about the problems at Eskom. We cannot have further issues hidden and covered up. We call on the ANC to make public the reports on Eskom to keep the public informed. This crisis affects every part of society, and we deserve to know what mess the ruling government has dropped us in. Well, historically, there's a very interesting issue here, which I'll probably raise in a separate video later on. Historically, pre-1652, South African history is a nebulous nothing. No one ever recorded the history. It was all just fables and stuff like that. Once a white man came, the history started being recorded. And ethics and democracy started coming in place of violence and complete incompetence. When you look at the Zulu nation, who just exterminated anyone who got in their way. You're talking about a huge shift in culture. And unfortunately, the black people in South Africa, and I'm talking generically because there are a lot of black people who get it, who get that there's something really wrong and they don't want to be part of it. But unfortunately, if you look at the power, the Zumas, the Ramaphosas, the numbers of ANC people who've been murdered in the last 10 years because they were going to expose the corruption that was going on in South Africa of their own kind, you can see there's something horribly wrong happening. Now, I'm just trying to pull up this article where Mr. Zuma, our friend Mr. Zuma, yeah. Mr. Zuma was crying that the public prosecutor was having a go at him. This is the president preceding Ramaphosa, who was turfed out because he was so corrupt. It is just quite incredible what is happening in South Africa. And the fact that the mainstream media are not covering this stuff is just beyond the pale. It really is. Okay, look, I'm not going to talk any further about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play you the video where the reporters are talking about the impact on Ramaphosa with the latest allegations raised in the Bosasa Zondo inquiry. And you can make up your own mind. And to Zuma and Ramaphosa, guess what you guys can do? I'm not even going to say what that means, because my regular viewers know exactly what Pogmahoin means in Irish. Cheers, guys. And the IEC, you can do the same thing, okay? Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed, and have a great
Well, this
day.
week saw President Cyril Ramaphosa's son, Andile, coming clean about receiving 2 million rand from the controversial company Bosasa. That's in a business deal he says he now regrets. In Parliament, the President is on record saying should his son be guilty of receiving money from Bosasa, he would personally bring him to account. Don't take my word for it. Here's what the President said himself.
I asked him at close range whether this was money that was obtained illegally, unlawfully, and he said this was a service that was provided, and to this end, he actually even showed me a contract that he signed with Bosasa, and the contract also deals with issues of integrity, issues of anti-corruption, and all that. I have made sure that I get the information as much as I can, and he is running a clear and honest business as an advisory service. And if it turns out, Mr. Maimane, I can assure you, if it turns out that there is any illegality and corruption in the way that he has dealt with this matter, I will be the first, absolutely first, to make sure that he becomes accountable. Even if it means, I can assure you, even if it means that I'm the one who will take him to the police station.
And it's that comment that we're now going to unpack, how the President is navigating the scandal. It's a huge pleasure to welcome to Newsnight public relations strategist Makosini Mgwitwa joining us. Makosini, good to have you with us. I see you half giggling while listening to that soundbite. For someone who is a public relations strategist, and I'm sure I'd even go as far as to say an expert on this, how bad is this evening? Is this a cringe moment for Cyril Ramaphosa?
You know, it's a cringe moment because we know now Bosasa is a company whose core business was corruption. Whatever it is that they were doing, it was just about them getting money, keeping some and giving some the other money to politicians. So it's very difficult to argue that there is any credible service that was provided by the President's son to Bosasa. The only inference we can draw, or the only conclusion we can come to, is that Bosasa was trying to get the influence of the now president, and whether or not they achieved that, we don't know at the moment.
If you were the President's public relations strategist and expert this evening, you've just heard me intro that particular soundbite. You're sitting perhaps at the Union Buildings, I'm not sure where the President is tonight, and you're watching it, and he turns to you and goes, Makosini, what do I do? Look,
I think, you know, what is the fact that we must look at is that, you know, corruption is the biggest problem that the ANC is facing. You know, when you talk about corruption, that's what really is the biggest bugbear of the ANC. I don't know if, you know, like I said earlier, that there is any favor that was accrued to Bosasa as a result of the work that, you know, allegedly his son conducted for them. But, you know, it just simply means that, you know, as he is facing elections now, this is not the issue that he wants to be seized with for the longest time. He would want it to be dealt with and to pass. But I think the point that I want to make to you is that President Ramaphosa has highest amounts of political capital than any president after democracy. Political capital simply means that people give him the benefit of the doubt, people trust him, people believe that he's doing the best for the country. So if you have had stories of corruption that, like we've had, and with the testimony that there was money that was given to the top six, and Deputy President Ramaphosa was part of that top six. So I think there is fatigue in terms of corruption on the part of the voters, but also what enables that is that we have opposition parties which are mediocre in their approach. If you take, for instance, Zimbabwe as an example, and Namibia. Zimbabwe got its independence in 1980. Namibia got its independence in 1990. But around 2000 in Zimbabwe, there was really, a groundswell of opposition to ZANU-PF. That's because opposition parties in Zimbabwe came together. They put their differences aside. They took organs of civil society. Morgan Tsvangirai who was the leader of the MDC, had been a leader of the labor movement, just like Zwelinzima Mavavi, maybe around 2003. So there was that coming together of opposition parties to say, here is an alternative to the ruling party. If you look across to Namibia, opposition parties are behaving exactly like they behave in South Africa. They're fighting their own battles, hoping that they can unseat SWAPO, and they've failed. So opposition parties in South Africa also are going to fail because of the reason they're not working together.
Okay, so that's the opposition part. Perhaps let me bring you back to my question, and perhaps, Makosini, the president this evening, how is he handling this as the president himself, as the president of the ANC and the president of the ruling party? What does President Ramaphosa do about this? The opposition parties are always going to have their say. It's what they do. What does he do to try and fix this, if he can?
Look, I'll tell you what advice a public relations strategist would give it to him. It would be deflect, go back to the campaign message, because an issue like this diverts him from the campaign. The fact that we're talking about it is not what the ANC would like to happen. So if he talks about it, he gives it fuel, he keeps it live. So he would want to move away from it as much as possible and go back to the message of anti-corruption that he's been driving, that he does have credibility on, considering the appointments he's made and all the decisions that he's taken.
Does he really have the credibility on the anti-corruption? Because I think so many South Africans, and partly perhaps as a result of social media and 24-hour news channels, they're always going to pull the president back to, yes, you're saying anti-corruption, yet there's your son. Can he really get away with this? Why would the president, for example, why would you not say to him, you know what, own the message, own the problem, and own the solution?
Yes. Look, you see, this will now bring me back to the issue of the media as to whether our news media fires on all cylinders. I think a lot of the time the president is allowed to get away with these things. You'll find very senior journalists who have made it their business to defend him in the media, to use their media platforms to defend him. So, there was also talk that there could be a live debate between him and his opponents. He has refused to do that. I don't think the media has held him to account. I don't think the media has put him under pressure to do that. So I think, look at where the country is and where President Ramaphosa is trying to take us. Not many journalists, not many commentators would like to go hard on President Ramaphosa, because if it were to happen that he topples, who's the second person behind him? It's not other than David Mabuza, who arguably is the boogeyman of South African politics. I don't think that many people in the media would like to have a David Mabuza presidency quite yet. And also, if you look at how President Ramaphosa is managing the economy, whatever problems that we have, whatever things that happen, it could be load shedding or whatever, you're not seeing the rand being as volatile as it was before. That's because he has appointed people who are selling a very good message story to the world abroad. And also, ratings agencies have given him. So I'm saying, if you look at the totality of his management of the country and where he's taking it, there aren't many people who would want to see him toppled. And therefore, they become somewhat soft on him. But also because he has shown, even during the campaign for the ANC presidency, that he is running on anti-corruption.
So are you suggesting almost that South Africa on this, I'm not going to call it a small issue, the issue surrounding his son, is almost willing to look the other way because some would argue the damage that's been done in the last 9 years, and many commentators have referred to it as damage, the president is fixing that, so we're going to let this one slide. Is South Africa and South African media getting soft?
Yes, we are getting soft, definitely. There's no question about it. Just imagine if this had been Duduzane Zuma or Edward Zuma or Kolobuse Zuma. There would have been much more noise than it is now. So the media is allowing him a free pass on some issues, but also because I think there was a bit of sophistication in putting together, assuming that, let's worst case scenario, assume it was for corrupt purposes. There would have been a contract that is written, that the contract on its own is bulletproof. You can't do anything about it. It's just us knowing and the perceptions around Bosasa that it must have been for corrupt purposes. But on its own, you cannot say the president did this to favor Bosasa.
Is there a positive spin at all here, as a public relations strategist and expert? Is there a positive spin at all on what's happening with the president's son? Is there anything that he can turn this on as a positive? Why not, as we heard in the clip, take his son to the nearest police station? Is that not what many South Africans would expect from him? He said it.
Yes, which is precisely the point that I'm making, that the contract on its own, it would say that he was paid so much for work that he did. So on its own, you cannot point out to any criminality. It's at the perception level because of what Bosasa, the company, we know it now to be. And also that, one would have expected that if the president wants to be taken seriously, more seriously, on the issue of corruption, perhaps there could be talk of that money being returned. But if Andile Ramaphosa is going to say, I provided work, I put my time, blood, sweat and tears into what I was being paid for, then legally, in my view, you cannot argue that there was any criminality. It's just that we know that Bosasa is a corrupt company.
Do you think it's done any damage for brand ANC and brand Ramaphosa for the elections?
Look, there are two brands, the two brands that you talk about, we must separate them. I think the ANC, in terms of its brand equity, it has suffered a lot in the past 9 years. But brand Ramaphosa is stronger. In fact, even opinion polls do suggest that he's more popular than the ANC. Which means that more South Africans have more confidence in him than they have in the ANC. But it's also because he's got a sleek PR around him. Kusela Diko, his spokesperson, came here herself personally, unlike her predecessor during Jacob Zuma's time, who just used a telephone only and come nowhere near studio. But she was here to answer questions, and the president himself, whenever he is challenged, like he was challenged now, you don't get the arrogance that we had perceived to be around the presidency during Jacob Zuma's time. You find a person who's humble, saying, I have looked into this. If there's a problem, I'll do something about it. I think that, he can get away with this one if there isn't going to be another scandal involving his son, because then it will become too messy.
It's a huge pleasure having you in to come and speak to us. And maybe the president was watching this evening, Makosini. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Coming in to speak to us. Public relations strategist Makosini Mgwita joining us here on Newsnight.